Welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. I'm your host, Larry Leese. On today's episode, we're going to dive into Cocaine Bear and give our thoughts on this unique film that just arrived in theaters. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex, for sponsoring this episode. If you're a podcaster looking to grow your audience and get more engagement, check out Poddex today at poddex.com and use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off your order. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Neil deGrasse Tyson would probably be stomping his feet in anger at Cocaine Bear, repeatedly yelling, "Wrong! Bears can't do that," over an increasingly annoyed theater crowd. But personally, I'm a fan of Deadly Beast Goes on a Killing Spree film. I've watched every mediocre shark attack movie when it launches straight to streaming because there's something oddly satisfying about watching arrogant, headstrong, generally unlikable surfers or college kids on a boating trip gone wrong get torn to shreds. Cocaine Bear has all those cheap, guilty pleasures in spades, but unlike something like Sharknado, its coked up bear is actually convincing enough to be scary when it tears apart every morally questionable person it comes across. So yes, Cocaine Bear is a very stupid movie. You probably guessed that from the pitch. A bear finds cocaine in the woods, eats it, then very bad things happen. So it shouldn't surprise you that this isn't a thinking person's film, nor should it be. It's a movie called Cocaine Bear. What is surprising, though, is how well it works, assuming you can meet it on its ridiculous terms. It's the real-life story of an American black bear who ingested 75 pounds of cocaine in 1985 after a drug drop went wrong, ended in the bear's instant death. Obviously. In reality, bears can't really handle 75 pounds of cocaine. Pretty much nobody can. The movie Cocaine Bear, on the other hand, or Paw, I should say, proposes the question, what if that bear had instead lived and gone on a rampage through a dense forest, killing nearly everyone in its path while hunting down even more cocaine? A substance it has become quite fond of. But unlike things like Snakes on a Plane, a movie that asks, what if there were snakes on a plane? Or Sharknado, a movie that asks, what if there were sharks in a tornado? Cocaine Bear is actually surprisingly well made. It's both very funny and very violent, providing us with a comically blood-soaked day in the park with a murderous bear on cocaine. Horror and comedy themes always have the chance to be at odds with each other, but in Cocaine Bear, they bounce off each other well. That's not just because the entire concept is absurd, but also because every single person and animal on screen is fully, completely committed to the bit, and there's an infectious sense that they were very clearly having an absolute blast making it. Characters and costumes are totally hammed up, from Ray Liotta's sleazy drug kingpin grandfather to Margot Martindale's self-absorbed and inept park ranger. The writing itself can best be described as weird and absurd, leading in the direction of parodies like Wet Hot American Summer, Hot Rod, or Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. So if you're not into that particular flavor of alternate comedy, the jokes might be hit or miss for you. But the silver lining there is that if a comedian doesn't click with you at a comedy club, you usually have to suffer through the rest of their set before they saunter off stage. But in Cocaine Bear, you'll probably see them get promptly mauled to death. The horror aspect of it is kind of like Jaws. No, this isn't a Spielberg masterpiece, but stick with me for a second here, okay? Jaws is a scary movie in part because sharks exist in the ocean, and they occasionally attack people. So it played on the fear that you could become shark food the next time you spend the day at the beach, and it amped that fear up to 11 by making a shark that's enormous and intentionally hunting people, which doesn't really happen. Along the same lines, any of us might encounter a large bear on a camping trip or hike in real life, but none of us will ever encounter one on tons and tons of cocaine. So a Cocaine Bear scenario will not happen to you or your family, and that makes it immensely fun watching it happen to other people, especially when several of those people don't really have the best motives in mind. It's established early on that Cocaine Bear is very much not against brutally mauling or killing any of its characters in insane ways, and that the bear is an unstoppable killing machine. It's huge, fast, and able to climb trees, knock down doors, or leap dozens of feet into the air to get what it wants. The bear itself was designed and animated by Weta Effects, the New Zealand-based digital effects studio behind films like Lord of the Rings and Avatar, so suffice to say it looks and moves incredibly realistically. or at least as believable as one would imagine a bear hopped up on cocaine could be. The kills here mostly work because they're gory and often just straight up hilarious. In reality, bears don't generally bother to kill their victims before eating them. They just start ripping and tearing. Throw in cocaine, and it's definitely much less likely to handle its dinner with grace. It's brutal, but you're not quite rooting for most of the characters because many of them don't have enough time to make a smart decision, given the insane situation they just found themselves in. And several of them are straight up bad, but likable people attempting to find cocaine themselves. You're also not quite rooting for the bear, because it's a violent animal who finds cocaine, finds out it loves cocaine, and goes on a warpath to find more cocaine. Rather, we're watching a bunch of chaotic elements get dumped into a forest and celebrating with selfish glee as they all begin to clash violently and comedically. When the bear shows up in a scene, we have no idea if it's fending for human blood or its next fix. So what do you think could happen? Cocaine is pretty much scattered everywhere in this movie, which seems crazy, but it kind of was back then. It was the mid-'80s. Most of your favorite movies and music from that era were fueled almost entirely by small mountains of that white, powdery substance. So even if you personally have a hard stance against the drug, just by being a fan of those things, you're basically a byproduct of secondhand smoke. Or coke, I guess. There's not really a message here because Cocaine Bear doesn't overly romanticize cocaine or sternly denounce it beyond the fact that in this movie, doing a line or eating a kilo is the equivalent of teens having sex in a slasher movie. Rather, it uses cocaine as an ingredient that, when dumped liberally on a scene, causes everyone that interacts with it to become frenetic, obsessive, and insane. So, now to our final verdict of the film. Cocaine Bear celebrates its nonsensical story, gives its characters and its bear plenty to chew on, provides a script with jokes that mostly land and kills that frequent delight, and gives us exactly and specifically what we signed up for. I hesitate to say you should shut your brain off to enjoy this movie as much as I did, because I think that exercise is mostly thrown around to excuse truly bad films, or, quote, so bad they're good films. I don't believe that Cocaine Bear is either of those things. It's a great horror comedy about a bear that eats cocaine, probably the best we'll ever get about such an inherently ridiculous premise. This is where you come in. If you're the kind of person who can buy into this insane idea and enjoy it for precisely what it's presenting itself as, you'll probably have a great time. It's gory, fun as hell, packed with hilarious, grotesque kills and over-the-top characters, and at 90-ish minutes, it's paced near perfectly and never overstays its welcome or overdoses on the joke. So let us know your thoughts on this movie if you've seen it yet, or when you do, let us know in the comments section below. But we'd like to ask you one final question. Which drug and animal movie would you want to see next? Would it be a meth elephant, weed whale, heroin hippo, oxy fox, or others? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, give us a thumbs up if you like our video, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to buy us a coffee, you can buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. Your support helps this channel grow, upgrade our equipment, and hopefully one day take the show on the road, and possibly even either create our own studio or rent out a studio somewhere. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We will see you next time.